so happy we alive.
Good evening, and welcome to Louisville Late Night. This evening we're in beautiful San Francisco, California.
In our prison. So this is the mentality that we've been living with. And then the next person was Peter McWilliams, who was just a wonderful person and just willing to stand up and speak out regardless. And then the next person was Steve McWilliams in San Diego. And this is a person that stood up for the poor. There's so few people that will stand up for the poor and willing to put his life on the line. And these are people a lot of times with illnesses that were actually cut short. Could have lived longer if they would have just kept their mouth shut. They wouldn't have said anything. They probably would have lived another 2 to 10 years. Who knows? But they chose to speak out, regardless of how sick they were. And I just cannot thank them enough. And we live with their legacy. They started the way for us.
I'd like to add to that list Marlene Rasnick, who died 2 weeks after the Los Angeles Cannabis Resource Center was shut down, fighting all the way to the end, speaking out, died of ovarian cancer.
Or how about Jane Warwick, that was under persecution from the Hayward Police Department and the Sheriff's Department of Alameda County. We just lost her recently too.
And Bob Deitch from Los Angeles, who was a longtime cannabis activist and anti-drugger activist also. We just recently lost him this year. I'd like to remember him.
I'd like to mention my friend and compatriot Les Crane, who started Mandel Remedies, Spiritual Remedies, and Plus Ministry, and was the financier of the summit that was mentioned earlier. We had invited Roger to come to that, and invited the previously mentioned Dan Quaintance from the Church of Cognoscenti in New Jersey Weedman, people from Florida, Tom Brown. He's here now because of that. That's something that was a brainchild of probably many more people than I'd ever be able to name, but most importantly, Gordon Poland, who a dear friend of mine in Asheville, North Carolina, is actually in Seattle right now, trying to get here. A good friend of Roger's as well. So those are the 2 people I wanted to mention, in particular Les Crane, but something I wanted to mention about this summit. A lot of people didn't hear about it, we didn't talk about it. It was just one of those things that just too good to be true could actually happen. And I felt awkward calling all these people. I'm like, if the DEA finds out we're doing this, our phones are tapped, they'll just swarm us because we haven't told anybody where we are. So there was some concern about this whole thing. And it was a really pivotal moment, I think, for everybody eventually to find out what we did there. We made this anointing well. We reenacted the Christ and the apostles. We did it with the integrity and honesty that all that we could muster. And it was just like the message of Christ, love the sinner. And we did, and that's how Les acted. But there's something more too that I wanted to mention about.
For my father, which was a hemp free victory veteran in World War II in Korea, that taught me everything I know about hemp biomass. In fact, when I was 5 years old, he created a hemp rope belt that I proudly used to wear. I also like to thank my mother for teaching me that, it's okay if you do it as long as you're over 18, and that's all you really need to do. Your bodies are growing up, you can vaporize it, you can eat it, you can take it through a tincture of your child. But smoking is really an adult thing, I feel. And because it is because of our movement that the teenagers are starting to see that, well, maybe we should wait till we're older and all this other stuff. It isn't because of being put in jail and being treated like animals, or worse than animals, I should say.
I'd like to remember, I believe his name was Eddie Smith from Kentucky, who went on Journey for Justice with us, and Cheryl Miller, who I never met but had great respect for.
And there was one other thing. In this circle, I would like to ask that the Jack Herrera initiative finally become a reality in the state of California. According to Jack, we have 5% left of California voters to convince, and why Normal isn't pushing it, and why we're writing all these propositions and state right things and all this stuff when we have a masterpiece created by Jack Herrera on his website, the Jack Herrera Initiative. I would ask the creator that the Jack Herrera Initiative become law in 2008. And I would ask that this circle and its energy help create that reality, and we will not have any more people being arrested. So mote it be.
I'd like to remember Gary Tucker. His case is featured in Nikki and Chris's book. This was back in '92. His family, including his wife Joanne and his brother Steve, owned a hydroponic shop in Georgia. All they were doing was selling light bulbs. Well, a lot of people don't know this about this case. It was, in fact, a medical marijuana case because one of the growers had AIDS and was growing it medically, and he was a very good grower. Tragically, he died before the case was over, and the DEA went to his obviously distraught wife, and it was her testimony that convicted the Tuckers. And Gary got originally like 15 years, but it came down when they changed the kilo count on plants, and he got 10, but he died in prison. He died in the prison in Alabama, Talladega, and he was a great person, and I'd like to remember him today.
I'd like to
Remember
add,
Ken Barber, Jenks, and Jim Rosenfeld, and actually Don Topping, especially since I'm sending this to you, who's such an important supporter of ours in Hawaii.
and Jeannie Erst, she remembers, who recorded so many of our voices.
And all the
That has given us so much inspiration, so much connectivity to each other and to nature and to life. And just give thanks for the cannabis plant that brings us all here and helps us to work for justice and compassion and for a better tomorrow.
And to feel the interconnectedness
Along the way.
I'd like to give thanks to the cannabis plant for helping me with my social anxiety. I'm so amazed that this plant comes from the land that my parents came from in the early 70s when they came to the States from northern India. Dad's from Punjab. And I didn't know anything about this Indian hemp, bong, none of that until I started going back into my own books that I decided, as I grew up in a Hindu household, I didn't want anything to do with dogma because I was living in fundamentalist Bible-thumping belt territory, and so I didn't want anything to do with any of that. And it's just a really amazing thing to have then be able to come full circle, go back to my roots, and recognize that the cannabis plant that I discovered in Berkeley, actually, on November 11th, 1999, was the first day, Veterans Day 1999. I still remember that. How that has now allowed me then to connect back to the deeper roots of my ancestors and family, and religious and cultural, spiritual world. It's just, it's really special for me, and I've never been able to articulate that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, I did write a little article about it in the Temple Journal in Tulsa, Oklahoma. They opened up a new Hindu temple. My mom was on the board of that, and she said, "Hey, we want all the kids to write articles." So I wrote an article, and it was all about the world within me and how cannabis helped me to find that.
take a moment of silence, and then we'll finish this up, okay? So to close out the circle, what I want to do is to extinguish these candles. And the first is the candle that represents the divisions between ourselves that keep us from working together to end these problems. Notice it didn't go out very quickly?
Yeah.
The second is to get rid of the ignorance that those who are